Welcome to the FBB Nutrition Q&A. The goal is to answer questions that you have around nutrition. So welcome. Well, let's start off with this. Taylor, you had a question on thoughts on fasting and when you would work it in around workouts. This is a great topic and something that came along many times in the general question Q&A that we got from Instagram and the Facebook group. So I will jump into this. First, my personal story with intermittent fasting and fasting in general. I've done some fasting, liquid fasting for periods of 3 to 14 days. Essentially, or 3 to 30 days, excuse me. So in my past, I have done liquid only fasts that have spanned that range. The 3-day or 5-day fasts I've done have just been lemon juice and a little bit of syrup, maple syrup, or something like that, with the intention of doing a gut reset. So that, I don't imagine that's the fasting you're talking about, but my experiences with full fasting like that, I did a liquid nutrition fast or diet for like 30 days back in my 20s. That was basically protein shakes all day, every day for many weeks in a row. And that is also likely not what you're talking about. Most of the conversation about fasting right now in the community is on intermittent fasting. And that is just fasting for various lengths of time. But really a fast is just any period of time that you're not eating. So when you go to bed at night and then you wake up in the morning, you've been fasting since your last meal, since dinner time, or whatever snack you had before bed. And that's why they call it breakfast, breaking the fast. The fasting length is a hot topic as of lately. And there have been camps of people that have dove into, let's do 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating, or 18 hours of fasting and only 6 hours of eating. Some people choose to even do one meal a day where they give themselves about an hour to 2 hours to eat, and then the rest of the day they're fasting. And there are people that will say, hey, being in a fasted state beyond 16 hours, you start to turn on certain genes and transcription factors in your cells that will initiate something called autophagy, or other cellular mechanisms that promote longevity. And some people will go so far as to say this is when you turn on fat loss. Now, there's a lot of evidence and data surfacing lately with some peer-reviewed evidence that is coming out of like Harvard and other respected publications that suggests that the benefits of intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating is actually really coming from caloric restriction. And it is a tool that helps certain people maintain a certain caloric restriction for a period of time. So they end up losing weight, they end up seeing body fat come off because they're in a caloric deficit. And it's because of those things that they're seeing the health benefits, et cetera. But that when compared to somebody doing just caloric restriction in a window of time that's much longer, let's say 12 hours of eating a day, but the same caloric restriction, there are no additional benefits to the fasting. So this is preliminary evidence and research that's coming out, which is starting to make people question, hey, should I be doing intermittent fasting? Is this like this? Is there some magic secret sauce to this? Or is it really just come down to caloric restriction? And for my personal experience of having done intermittent fasting for about 18 months without any slip ups, like I've stuck to a 16-8 or an 18-6 schedule, I found that it definitely was a tool to get into a caloric deficit. I lost body fat and I got really lean. What I found was that it was actually difficult to maintain the lifestyle because I was having to manipulate my schedule around things like training, things like family meals, and it became just problematic. Plus, by maintaining this strict schedule of intermittent fasting, I was in a caloric deficit for too long, and I started to see energy levels drop. I started to see maybe hormone issues pop up, and ultimately I needed to kind of give myself a little bit more freedom to increase my caloric intake. And even though I tried really hard to make sure I was hitting the right calories inside my eating window, it just didn't give me the opportunities that I needed to stay in a caloric balance. Some of the questions that we get is, hey, if I wake up in the morning and I'm going to train in the morning, should I eat first or should I fast? I don't believe it really matters. I really think that you have to find what feels best for you. There's absolutely plenty of people that can wake up, go into the gym fasted, and hit an extremely hard workout and not be bogged down by not having enough fuel. The majority of the fuel that you're using for your training is stored muscle glycogen and whatever amino acids, glucose molecules, fatty acids that are just circulating in your blood based upon your own homeostasis levels that you just keep in there at all times. So the fact that you ate an hour before a meal, that's not necessarily what's fueling your workout. If you're fasting, the question like a lot of people come up with is, hey, if I wake up in the morning, if I go to work out and I haven't eaten anything since last night, is that going to be detrimental to my performance? Not necessarily. For most people, that's very much mental. If eating before mentally puts you in a better place to go get a good workout, it might be important to do that as well, to get some food and to approach your workout with better mental confidence. But I'm here to tell you that from a performance standpoint and a physiology standpoint, what you really want to be focused on is mostly hydration, getting some electrolytes, etc. And that might be the thing that is most important when you wake up in the morning prior to a fasted workout. The other thing that I hear is, I'm doing intermittent fasting, and at the end of, I work out at 8 p.m., but I've already cut off my eating window. Is it important that I get some fuel in me right after I work out? Is it a problem that I'm fasting until the next day? This is also not ideal. I think ideally you would train and then you would have some type of food fueling after training. I think this is probably how our bodies were meant to exert themselves and then be rewarded with food at the end. Like, let's say you were going out on a big hunt or going out on a big gather and you had to go and trek across miles and miles and miles. There was food at the end of that. That's kind of how our physiology is set up. So I don't think that that's best. Is it going to completely throw off your fitness progress? No, we're very adaptable. And if you eat and cut off your eating window at 6 p.m. and then train at 8 p.m. and then don't eat until the next day, you can still make fitness progress. It's just a matter of what's most optimal and ideal for you.